Hey everyone, it's Elizabeth here. So I just wanted to do this quick video in regards to some thoughts that if we can't handle winter as humans, we're definitely screwed. I just think the world today is changing. That's no surprise. I think everybody understands that. But what's interesting is I feel like people just can't handle winter anymore. And I completely empathize because I used to bash winter. I hated it. I would always complain, about seasonal affective disorder, that it's dark, it's cold, it's rainy, it's snowy, and it gets really tiring. And I was born and raised in Cleveland in the snow belt, and man, it gets exhausting and scary when you have to drive and put yourself through that crap, especially for months. Like, I get it. But what's interesting is that with this shift in climate, whether you believe in it or not, there is a shift in the climate. And some people are experiencing more extreme winters, which is really difficult. You see some of these horrible storms that hit the East Coast, like DC and Boston. But the reality is, winter is a part of life in most temperate climates of the world, obviously with the extreme of the Arctics or the tropics and stuff, which are obviously in one end of the spectrum or not. And there are people who are living in such dry, hot, desert type situations that we now have climate migrants that are leaving places like Africa to move abroad to more fertile lands in the West, specifically Europe and America, because you can survive, there's food, there's water, all of your Maslow hierarchy of needs are being met. But there's kind of an interesting energetic behind this. I think if we can't handle winter and we're constantly focusing on the weather, that is a huge and clear sign of our societal well-being in terms of our personal happiness. And I'm going to put this blog link down below because as I lived in Europe, I visited the Scandinavian countries, and I've spoken with people from the Netherlands and from Denmark and Sweden and Finland, and these countries are continuously rated the happiest places or happiest countries on the planet. And it's because their societal structure, which works really well in homogeneous cultures, something works for them. Maybe part of it's socialism and part of it's just the mindset. I mean, I've talked to a Dutch guy when I was not a Dutch guy, a Danish guy, when I was traveling through Spain, and I was in Ibiza, and we were chatting on a bus, and he was talking about, like, we think about our children and the well-being of our future. Like, we're not a self-centered, so focused society like other countries, that it's like there is some form of well-being to that. And these people in Scandinavia have to deal with the absolute worst of the worst, especially once you're up north by the Arctic Circle. They're dealing with freezing temperatures, mounds and piles of snow, and they're dealing probably with like 21 or 22 hours of darkness. I mean, it's kind of interesting when you start looking at a lot of like Swedish and Nordic writers, or same thing coming out of Iceland, how it's kind of like they have these really dark vibes. I mean, something like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is an excellent example of something that comes out of the Scandinavian countries, and you're like, what the hell are these people thinking? Like, who imagines this stuff? And maybe it's because they're surrounded in darkness all the time. But there is definitely a reason why these countries are continuously promoted as the happiest cultures in the world. It's a mindset thing. And I think today, it's like, what are we going to do? I talked about this in other videos about the sad disorder. Are we all going to run down to the Southwest, to Arizona and Florida and the Carolinas? Like, the whole country of America, 300 million people can't fit into the lower half of the portion just to escape a winter. And the irony is, the flip side of it, they have horrible summers. Florida's like a swamp. I mean, literally, it's like breathing in water. And then you have places in, Nevada and Arizona and New Mexico that are so hot. It's literally hot as hell. There's no fertile life. You have to be inside in air conditioning or at a pool. And then they get torrential monsoons during the summer months. So it's like, what do you expect? You know, places like Oklahoma and Texas, they have Texas has like hurricanes on the Gulf, and then tornadoes are constantly plummeting through the plains of middle America and like places like Oklahoma. So I guess my point is there's no one perfect place to live. I mean, you can live in Southern California and deal with the fires that are happening every year, but you get temperate climate all year round, kind of. I mean, some of it's a little hot in like LA. San Diego's a little more temperate than LA, but I guess the moral of my story is there's something happening, and I feel like when people don't have either enough going on in their lives or either certain goals or certain fulfilling relationships, they tend to focus on the weather a lot. And it's no secret that everything is more beautiful and in bloom in the summer, and it feels great, and the human body thrives, and that's amazing. But the reality is, this is reality. This is part of nature, 4 seasons. If you believe in God, this is what God created, and there are specific benefits for the reason why we go through this. It's not only symbolic to these things of the death and rebirth process that happen a lot in our life and in our emotional state, but it's a time to reflect, and it's a time to focus on the light that is within the dark, especially when you're looking at things like the holidays and the beauty of the light that's surrounded by the dark. I just think, I don't know, I think there's something happening. We've definitely become weaker. We're becoming more sensitive, and this is not saying that people need to be desensitized. In certain things, like, for example, with matters of the heart, I am a very emotionally sensitive person, but there's certain, kind of pieces of grit that you have to have in order to survive humanity. And if you just want to lie around your apartment because it's like, oh, the weather's too crummy, like, yeah, it makes sense. There are some days you're just not going to want to go out, but once you start letting the weather rule your life, that's a problem. When you're constantly giving an excuse for not going out or meeting with people or canceling your plans because of this, and this, it's too wet or it's too chilly, that's where it rules your life, and that's where things become a problem and there's a disconnect. I don't know. I just find it really interesting because some of the weather has gotten really extreme with the climate change, but for example, this year, the Midwest is supposed to get a pretty mild winter compared to other winters. And, living out here in the Pacific Northwest, it sucks getting dark at 4 o'clock and having rain, but you know what? It's really not that bad of a winter. It doesn't get down to 7 degrees. Could you imagine that? I've been there. I'm from Cleveland. People in Canada, in the Yukon, deal with a lot worse. So, I don't know. I just wanted to share some of these thoughts. It's kind of like a random video. There's really, I guess, no point or purpose to this, but I feel like in society, if we can't handle winter, this is not a good sign because it means we can't handle hardship. The death process of, hello kitty, the death process of winter is the time for us to go inward and to reflect on certain things. And so, I don't know, it's like life isn't sunny all the time. The human emotions, one day it's sunny, the next it's cloudy, the next it's a waterfall, it's a cloud leaking a bunch of tears. So that's just a part of life. It's a process. And we can't live in sunshine all the time, because if we're dependent on the weather to make us happy, that's a very big indicator that you are not happy on the inside, or you're not finding some form of fulfillment with this external world that we have, especially in the West, where we have such an abundant culture of, you can buy pretty much anything you want. Most of us have homes, hopefully healthy homes. So, yeah, anyways, I don't know. These are just some thoughts that I wanted to share. If you have any questions or comments, please note them below. If you can, please subscribe to this channel. You can also help me on Patreon. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.